I had 503 lessons this year so far. Your mom did some data work. And what were you at? 875 or something?
Yeah, from April till now. Yeah.
From April till now. We're in Canada, so we're not year-round. So 875 lessons, April, May, June, July, August, September, a little bit of October in 6 months.
No, that didn't include October.
That's an incredible pace. I feel old with my 500 too. 30 years in to 500 lessons minimum.
You've done a lot
I
of
used to teach a lot more, actually. So with all the people we see, I can't tell you how many people think that throwing their legs forward will get them to their lead. Like they say, I can't get off my back foot. How do I get off my back foot? How do I get to my front leg? And then they throw their lower body at it, which of course makes the upper body kick back. And even worse, if you go towards your toes at all, if you have thrust in your belly button moving down towards the golf ball at all, your head falls backwards again to counteract the balance, right? So you can't get up onto that foot. So the answer to a lot of people that we teach, if you're trying to get to your front foot, try less hard. You're trying too hard. You've got too much lower body action. You've got too much hip bump. And it's preventing your upper body from getting there with you.
Yeah,
right?
try turning through the ball more. Don't try throwing your legs at it. I mean, we do.
All right, so at impact, what does it look like? Let's just stay on the topic a little bit with the pelvic center.
Of course.
So it turns, it sways laterally 1.5 inches or 2 inches.
Yeah.
You could say that. And it comes in 1/2 inch to 1 inch, depending on the pelvis and the size of motion. So it's not moving much.
No.
Then it moves almost laterally. And by the time, I think that tour average, by the time impact happens, he's got 4.8 of positive sway to the target.
Yeah, it depending on the player, the best players tend to be between 4.5 and 5. So you're on your front leg. It's moved forward from the address position 5 inches, which means it had a total move of about
7.
6.
Now put your
7.
fingers up in front of you, everybody, and look what 7 inches is.
It's not as much as you think.
No. And
No.
if you're throwing your knees 1.5 feet forward, you're really destroying things. So everything's more subtle than we think in golf.
I think a really good example of that is, your thigh or your femur should be over your ankle at that point, right? Your lead ankle. So you bump your hip forward enough that your thigh gets over your ankle. Maybe the outside of your hip or thigh gets a little bit past your ankle, but not by a lot. And that's when the rotation needs to start.
Yeah, I would caution people, and we see this a lot too. Your femur can only get over your ankle if your stance is appropriate. A lot of people have too wide a stance. A lot of guys stand up with the Magilla Gorilla
Totally.
driver stance. You're never getting up over that leg.
There's no way you can't do it.
Yeah.
Totally. That's a very good point. I totally agree with that.
So you have to watch the width of stance, which is,
Yeah.
Get in front of a mirror, copy the pros on television, and their stances are more narrow than you think. They're not as wide as you think they are. Yeah.
Especially when you look at a few, like Ricky Fowler's a great example of that. Ricky's stance is not very wide and allows him to be very calm with his lower body, but rotational.
Yeah.
And hit the golf ball very clean.
Yeah, that is a good one to look at.
But
I wonder why he does that. Ricky's got the really narrow putting stance too. I guess he just likes to be, I don't know about compact, but he's a rotary golfer.
yeah,
certainly,
for sure he is.
Right.
For sure he is.
Early Tiger had a big, wide, ripping, move off the ball, move into the ball, hit it forever, lateral kind of look.
Yeah.
They're very different. But
Yeah, it's true.
Find what's right for you, but don't go too wide. It's just my caution.
No,
Okay,
no,
continue on.
And you're right. That's more commonly the miss for sure.
We got to get the femur over the ankle.
But yeah, so you bump over the ankle. And again, like you said, that's a great thing to practice. Figure out in a mirror how much that is. Because again, it's the secret move that not enough people have in golf. Not enough people have that bump. But on the other side, most people who have any of that move grossly overdo it.
Yeah.
Right? There's not a lot of golfers that are in that sweet spot of they have that lateral bump of the weight or the pressure shifting to the outside of that lead foot with that hip bump going forward.
The golf swing
but don't
is a
overdo
recipe, right? I mean, there's so many little analogies I've used over the years. It's a series of dominoes, so you've got to get each domino lined up to knock over the next domino.
Yes, you do.
But it's also a recipe, and the secret to any recipe is the
right amount of
ingredients
something.
you add, when you add them, and how much you add.
Yeah.
And most people find out that the vanilla is the secret to the cookie, and they dump the bottle in. They just don't understand. It's a teaspoon of vanilla right after you put it in the mixing bowl or whatever it is. There's a recipe to swinging properly.
It's the old lesson you learn that too much of a good thing can be a problem.
Yeah.
You can have too much of a good thing, and that leg bump is too much of a good thing some people's case.
Yeah, I
And-
really like getting pupils in front of a mirror. You'd have to do it with a pro so you know exactly what is right. But I like focusing on keeping my head in a bubble, quiet, and then just bumping my hip over a little bit to feel the weight go onto that leg. And
yeah, for sure.
when you get good at it, it's like a little independent move. The head stays where it is, but the hips kind of bump over. And, you know, Jack Grout and Jack Nicklaus talked about rolling the ankles. Other people talk about bumping your knees to the target. Other people talk about a hip bump. The hips start the downswing. Hogan famously said that in 5 Lessons in 1957. You know, the kinematic sequence happens from the ground up. It includes a lateral move. Whether you think about rolling your ankles or bumping your knees or bumping your hip, you need to find what that feels like and looks like. And when you do it properly, the lower body bumps, the upper body holds off a little bit, which drops the club back onto the plane. Your
sure.
club actually swings up in golf and curves up. It doesn't stay on the same one single, hula hoop around you. It curves up. And that little bump drops it back down onto the appropriate hula hoop plane to rip into that golf ball. And you need that move. And it's a 4 to 5 inch total positive sway with a couple inches of negative sway in the backswing. So the hips are always moving within a 6 to 8 inch little, or the pelvic center, the belt buckle's moving in that little 6 to 8 inch parameter, right?
Yeah, it's not moving a lot, but it is making sure it's allowing itself to move properly, right?
And then we rotate.
and
That's
then we
the
rotate from
snapping
there.
of the leg. And what's created actually insane distances that modern pros hit it is understanding the biomechanics, how much of what when. But also Tiger Woods was the first one who I, especially if his dad was his coach. I mean, they didn't have biomechanics.
No.
Snapping that knee, the faster you turn, the faster you, I guess we should say, negative thrust after you've swayed, right?
Yeah,
for,
I mean,
for biomechanic terms, the faster you then turn, the more speed, rotational speed you develop through the ball.
Yeah, I think more to the point.
And the leg snap makes it as fast and big as possible.
Yeah, I think more to the point, instead of saying negative thrust, I mean, the faster you clear once you've gotten over to your front leg, the more what you do is you transfer that pressure from the middle of your outside sole to the heel of your lead foot, and that transference of the energy that way creates a lot of force, both, of the gravity pushing back up on you, but also of, counter effect of whipping of the club going forward.
Yeah.
And that force is what creates all that speed. And I mean, to my credit, I guess, talking about the bad things in my swing, that's what we were saying I do well, right? The reason I hit the ball relatively far is because even though my legs sometimes overdo it or go out of sequence, and that's my problem, when it's done properly,
Yeah, you've got incredible rotational
a lot
power.
of snap into
You've
my
got
leg.
a compact body, very thick thighs, and when you rotate, it just goes like a batter to hell.
Yeah, so it's a great thing for power if it can be done properly. But again, I'm the perfect example of someone who can do it really well when I'm on. But if my timing's off or any part of that puzzle is a little bit out of timing, it can cause a big problem too.